exam group by the technique for the trial to be scientifically sound. Over the months, the results were compiled and then analysed, and a clear picture began to emerge.
The reaction was pretty incredible. There was a lot of interest because it was a well-done study with a large number of participants that had a credible placebo control and adequate follow-up and adequate acupuncture. So it was applying good science to this ancient technique.
The results were to cause a sensation.
When you compared the two, there was about a 33% improvement of the real acupuncture group over the sham acupuncture.
And do you know whether the acupuncture is having an effect on the osteoarthritis itself?
We don't think that the acupuncture is actually having an effect on the osteoarthritis itself. What we think the acupuncture does is it reduces the pain and inflammation. And that has the effect of then less pain, easier to get around, and better physical function.
So would you say that this trial proves that acupuncture works, at least for osteoarthritis?
I think it does show that acupuncture works for osteoarthritis of the knees. I can't say because of this trial that acupuncture works for other types of osteoarthritis even. It may well do, but we need to do this sort of definitive studies. We don't have all the answers in Western medicine.
So this trial is the first really convincing scientific evidence that acupuncture works. For Sylvia, it meant a new lease of life.
I told everybody to use acupuncture. I felt like the spokesperson for them. There was such a difference in the pain level, in the walking, in every aspect of my life was changed. It felt like I had new knees again because it was wonderful.
When I heard about the Berman trial, first thing I did was send an email to Brian Berman to congratulate him, because up to that point, we had the largest trial, and now he had the largest trial. And I think it's very important to get these big trials done. Of course, the nice thing about his trial is that it also had a placebo control group, and he did show important differences between patients who received true acupuncture and those who received a sham technique.
The Berman trial shows that acupuncture is effective for one specific indication. The trial is well designed, and therefore I personally trust its results. It convinced me that acupuncture works for knee osteoarthritis.
So scientists and patients seem to be speaking with one voice, that for osteoarthritis at least, acupuncture works. And other trials suggest it works for other kinds of pain too. So we can safely say, based on the evidence, acupuncture works for some kinds of pain. I'm quite surprised. I found evidence that acupuncture can work. Something I hadn't expected when I started this investigation. But that just raises an even bigger mystery. Because, so far, there's no proof that needling has any measurable biological effect on the body. So, how can it be treating pain? To be really convinced that it's working, I need to understand how it can be having its effect. A friend of mine, Mark Lithgow, might be able to help. As a neuroscientist, he's been trying to understand just what pain is.
Pain research is a very new area. Just understanding the areas, how they connect together, is really just emerging.
But modern scientific equipment, like the MRI scanner, has provided insights.
15 years ago, it was not possible to look inside someone's head. It was treated as a black box. This has revolutionised how we understand neuroscience today.
Now we can actually see how the brain responds to pain.
There's completely different areas that are associated with pain. You'd register that pain, And these parts of the brain towards the front would start to light up. And there's another area at the sides just here called the insular cortex, which would also light up in order for you to register that feeling of pain.
So the brain may be the key to acupuncture. That was really important. If acupuncture works on pain, then it ought to affect the areas of the brain that are involved in experiencing pain. And we're going to devise an experiment to try to measure that. Now, it's hugely ambitious because, of course, we've got to be scientific and rigorous and plan it really carefully. But if it does work, we could find powerful evidence that acupuncture is having a real effect on the body. I've called in some of the top people in the field to help. So we're going to devise an experiment together that's trying to work out the effect of needling on the brain.
The data is the most extraordinarily interesting thing.
I think one of the first key things we have to tackle is what we use as a control.
I'm still a bit concerned to actually try and work out what acupuncture actually is. Is it the needle going in, or is it actually the turning of the needle? And there seems to be a depth issue here as well.
Most acupuncturists would say for this point here on the hand would needle about maybe half a centimetre to a centimetre.
This is clearly much more complicated than it initially seems, isn't it? I mean, there are so many different parts we could look at. The position that you put the needle, the depth that you put the needle, the movement of the needle, whether you move it or not.
So what you're suggesting is we just focus on the act of needling and take an...
It's really interesting for me being in a room with a group of people of different perspectives. So scientists, some of whom are really sceptical about acupuncture, and acupuncturists who are interested in science but really believe in acupuncture. And I think to do a proper experiment in this field, you have to have those different perspectives. You need the scepticism, but you also need people who really understand the whole of the field.
So let's just constrain ourselves to one particular point in acupuncture, say in the back of the hand.
So
how would that help us?
Well, I think that would, because at least you're looking at the effect of that point on the brain. And one of the interesting comparisons then is to see if you just go, say, superficially, just under the surface of the skin, and see what happens to the brain, and then needle to the depth of maybe about a centimetre, which is probably on average what most acupuncturists would do. And we could map that in the brain. We could look at that difference.
Well, we've made a good start, and we've agreed on what test we're going to use. We'll stick the needle in on a well-known acupuncture point just here. And for the real acupuncture, we'll stick the needle in quite deep and do a brain scan of the volunteer. As a control, we're going to just stick the needle in a short distance and twist it, and then do the brain scan. And so, by comparing those two, we ought to be able to see the difference between the real acupuncture and the control. This is a genuine piece of new research. We plan to look deep into the brain during acupuncture to find out, one way or another, whether acupuncture is having a measurable effect on the body.
Oh, that's fantastic. 16.
Now all we've got to do is set the experiment up. Mark talks to the team about volunteers, questionnaires, scientific protocols, as well as tracking down the most powerful scanner available.
The setup was just incredible. The constant phone calls. I mean, within a few minutes of someone putting the phone down, there'd be someone else on the phone saying, "Are you sure this protocol's right?"